What's good, family? My name is Houhaynes, aka the Nomad, and I want to know, how do you do fitness? I'm here today in Arizona, and we're going to be working out with my guy BT, and we're going to see how to kettlebell. This guy's a specialist. He's going to show me how to really get down. Follow me to see what's up. If you're watching this, get a notepad out and learn something today, okay? Not playing. You. Yes, you. Get one. Okay.
Pull up in motorcades. I got a show today. It's all I'm trying to do. Hustle and motivate.
What's up, brother? How you doing?
Chilling.
Good to see you, man. Glad you made it out to the valley.
Thank you, thank you. Like I said, I'm here with my man BT. BT, let us know what we got today.
So I'm BT. I am the owner of Wild Love Wellbeing. Today we're going to do a lot of core activation, a lot of stability, a lot of tempo, and a lot of strength. So look forward to a nice hard workout here. All right, so first, I'm gonna utilize this plyo band here. We're gonna get you in a bear position. So we're gonna have your palms underneath your chest, knees underneath the hips, just like so. Perfect. Now I want you to stand up real quick now that you got that situation. And now I'm gonna present this band. I'm gonna have it around your hips for you.
Okay.
You all good? Yep. Perfect. All right, now as I have Houston in this banded position, I'm going to put a little bit more attention on that band. Now I'm going to ask him to use his core a little bit more, but use it more in a lung capacity with the breathing in the lungs here. So now I'm going to have him breathe in as big as he can and then exhale as much as he can. So we're going to use the lungs as a little bit of pressure point here. So now we're going to be using that thoracic cage that covers everybody's organs and have him really kind of accentuate and get small contractions all the way through his core to activate. As you can see here, we got shoulder durability. As he braces down, we have that core and that lower body in action as well. So I'm going to have them stay in this position, keeping that tension on this band for a little bit longer, and I'm also going to go on the other side because we want that even connection, right? We want to do everything we do on the right, we do on the left, and vice versa. All right, so now I got Houston in this bear position here, stabilizing the body. As you can see, he's got connectivity with his palms on the ground, his toes nice and connected. He's off the ground by his knees. Now we're going to use a little bit of that breathing, a little bit of that lung pressure to create those small contractions in those abdomen, really activate that core. So what he's doing is he's taking big inhales in, big exhales out. We're using the lungs as a gas tank, right? We're going to go on E, empty, and then we're going to go on full. But what we're doing is also invoking those stabilizing muscles before we start to activate, which is going to create muscle synthesis. So once we create the muscle synthesis in the beginning, we're going to maximize our efforts and our output as we work out throughout the day. So we did the other side earlier. Now we're just finishing up with this one. Keeping that breathing motion. We're going to stay here for about 10 to 15 seconds. Keeping him stabilized. He's going to continuously breathe in, right? Continuously putting pressure, using that diaphragm to really work, using the lungs to really activate those abdomen, and now relax. Perfect. Great job. Woo! So moving forward with these exercises, we're going to use the kettlebell as a medium of resistance. I always say that if you have one kettlebell, you have an entire gym. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a bent over row using that kettlebell, working the lats and the core. We're going to have it unilateral, but we're going to alternate, right? So we're going back and forth. So we're using a little bit of more timing, a little bit more hand-eye coordination, and having some fun with the kettlebell as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a row, switching over to that right side or that other side and into another row in a bent over stance, right? So we're going to use our inferior body, so our hip to heel, to stabilize us, but still work that upper body, making it a full body connection, but more primarily, we're going to be working the lats. So we're going to have that kettlebell here, handle up, facing us in the center, right in our sternum. We're going to create that nice little hinge where our chest is parallel to the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I get that full extension and squeeze. A lot of people drive the elbows, but they drive it so much that it's a lot of scaps and a lot of shoulders. I only want to bring that elbow to where I'm pushing the lat into my spine for a full contraction, then I'm gonna release. I'm not gonna push that elbow beyond the fact that it's contracting fully, and I'm just gonna switch it over to that other side, keeping my lateral core muscles engaged, right? The obliques and the serratus. So I'm gonna be right here. I'm gonna squeeze, pop up, squeeze, pop up, squeeze. So as I pop up and I have to hold that kettlebell up as I transition, I have to isometrically change everything that I'm doing from the right side to the left and vice versa. Ready to rock? Yeah. All right. So he's going to create that hinge. The kettlebell is in the center of his body. He's going to yoke that kettlebell up. Then he's going to switch it over to the other side. Nice and smooth. Send it over. Nice and smooth. So once he transfers that over, he's just going to be ready to contract, let loose, and contract. So we also want to elongate that lat as well, right? So we want to let that shoulder drop just a little bit so we can extend and let that lat catch all the way into that contraction. Maintaining that the chest is parallel to the ground. Most of that tension and stabilization is in the hips, the hamstrings, and that heel, right? Stabilizing that lower body so we can activate and keep everything safe. Nice. Nice and smooth, quick transitions. Good. Notice that he's breathing every time he contracts. I always like to think EX, right? So if I'm extending and expanding muscles, then I want to exhale, right? And time that up till everything works for my movement. Good job, brother. All right, moving along, now we are going to have a superior load. So what we're going to do is we're going to have these kettlebells racked up, but we're going to be utilizing function and activation in an inferior standpoint, so hip to heel, right? So that's going to be our function, our movement. We're going to iso and connect the upper body, creating a little bit of a load and utilizing that to create more core connection, making it a little bit more difficult for a simple movement, right? So we're going to rack it up, making sure we got 3 out of 4 points of contact, where they're going to get in a split stance. All we're going to do is come down 90 degrees from hip to heel on both sides, press through that front heel and extend all the way into an overhead press. Bring those weights down, back into a 90 to 90 press, and back down. Rocking it up, staying nice and upright, making sure we have space to operate so the legs are kicked out. Remember, we want 90 degrees from hip to heel on both sides. Utilizing that hamstring, activating that quad, keeping that core tight. Beautiful, nice and slow. So once again, we're changing the timing. We have a lot of strength, we have a lot of bracing, have a lot of upper body load, and a big activation, a big press up top. But as we come down, a lot of hamstring and glutes going on here. Notice how his back leg is not fully extended and he's not locking his knees, right? Meaning that it's all muscle contraction. That front heel is taking all that tension, driving all the way up and coming nice and down. So a nice complex movement that we can do so we can focus primarily on the lower body, but we can still get a nice little upper body pump as well as working on that core. Big complex, big benefit. As you can see, we're moving on to the other side. Everything we do on the right, we do on the left and vice versa. Notice how he's creating himself a lot of space from front to back. Also creating a lot of space in the hips, right? So he has space to operate and come down where he has no impingements, none of that valgus. Always making sure he's coming down nice and smooth, finding those heels, knees don't go over the front of the foot or the midfoot, utilizing that ankle and utilizing that heel tension to drive all the way up. Nice. Good job, brother.
Thank you, sir.
All right, so before we had Houston in a nice prone position, we're actually going to change that up and get him in a supine position, utilizing a little bit more resistance with this kettlebell here, still invoking a lot of core response, but now it's going to be a little bit overloaded in that upper body, utilizing some of those lateral core muscles like the serratus anterior and the obliques, okay? And we also want to make sure we have that shoulder durability as we go through, and we're going to be working on a lot of upper body exercises. So we're going to come down here, grab this kettlebell in a cannonball status. So we're going to use that mace here. We're going to make sure that back is supported here, that natural arch. We're gonna extend the legs, extend the arms, coming out in what they call a hollow hold, really invoking the core, really spreading that out, getting that eccentric tension. Once we hold for about 4 seconds, then we're gonna come in and get that small contraction. 2 reps here, then we're gonna come back out for those 4 seconds on that iso hold with that eccentric tension. Okay? All right, let's get it going. So we're gonna make sure that the spine is neutral, but we're not gonna let go of that natural curvature in that lower back. So now that he's making sure that spine is neutral and protected by that ground, we're gonna extend, we're gonna hold for 4 seconds, right? Get a nice little contraction here, that iso tension, then we're gonna come in for 2, 1, 2. Then we're gonna go right back down. As you notice, he's still breathing throughout his exercises, still creating a lot of tension here, also getting his breathing pattern together with the duress of the body that's gonna come throughout the exercises that we're gonna do later on. Perfect. Hold, keep breathing. Try to keep that head off the ground, that chin up, but not in the chest, right? There we go. Breathing all the way through. We're gonna hold. That 4 seconds, get a lot of control, then those small contractions, perfect. Nice. See how he's bringing the kettlebell to the legs, making sure that all the abdomens, all those muscles really get that nice contraction all the way through. Let's do this one more time. Holding 1, 2, 3, 4, and bringing them together for those 2 reps. And relax. Excellent. Now I'm taking away the lower body in essence of form, in essence of like structure, like where I'm actually going to lift off from. Now I'm going to call on more of the core that we invoked earlier when we did that deep breathing and we did that bear with the cable exercise. So now I'm going to be a little bit open here. Always want to operate in the space that I create. I'm going to rack that kettlebell where it has 3 to 4 points of contact, right? Either forearm, bicep, shoulder, and chest. When I know I have that kettlebell in that rack position, I'm going to use what they call a J press. So I'm going to stand nice and tall from my hip to head. I'm going to come out and press that kettlebell to where I feel it all the way in my scaps. Then I'm going to bring it down nice and slow, creating that serratus anterior and that oblique connection. Then I'm going to breathe out and lift with the lungs, brace with the body, right? So when I press up, I'm going to exhale out. And then I'm going to hold in my breath so I can brace my body to get ready to accept that tension down low. All right. So we're going to do about 8 to 12 reps on each side. Remember, we always do things on the right that we do on the left, staying nice and even. Yep, perfect. Nice and tall, so don't flex the wrist so much. Where you want to hold the kettlebell is in this muscle here, in that serratus, right there in that lat. There you go. And bow that elbow out, so accept. Now press and bow it out to where the scap has to flex into the other one.
Okay.
There you go. Utilize that breath as an initiator, right? So once you press up, big exhale. Good. Now once you come down slow, hold that breath and accept. So it's all about bracing and breathing. We want to maximize that force output. Slow and control always is the best way to go about it when you really want that muscle contraction, when you really want to develop that hypertrophy. Perfect. Nice and slow and smooth, right? One quick motion. Remember, it's a J press. There we go. Perfect. Notice how much space is from his legs all the way up here. It's a counterlateral tension. So the connectivity is with that heel here, but the weight is coming down, making sure that his core is activated throughout the entire exercise. Perfect. And like I said, everything we do on the right, we do on the left, so we're just going to switch it up, making sure things are nice and even. Yep. Great rack position, right? We got 3 out of 4 points of contact. And we're sliding it down. There we go. See how it's falling right into that pocket and always excelling all the way up. Getting a full range of motion. Great job. Just keep breathing, staying nice and smooth. Notice how he's bracing, really focusing on what he wants to do, what muscles he wants to invoke. That's that mind to muscle connection that you hear so many trainers talk about, but they really don't explain what that actually does, what that actually means. So what he's doing is making sure that he's focusing on what he wants to accomplish and what's actually working for his benefit. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Big exhale, big catch. Utilizing a lot of that breath, right? Lifting with the lungs is what I like to say, because if we don't have any core response, if you don't have the breathing working for that motion, then you cannot maximize your force output. Beautiful. All right, so moving forward, last but not least, what we're gonna do is a conventional deadlift, but we're gonna take that and make it unilateral, right? We're gonna put that resistance and that weight using the kettlebell on the outside of the body, meaning that we have to stabilize. Because it is a sort of hinge and press with that conventional deadlift, most of that tension will be in that posterior chain, right? So we're gonna have the benefits of that lateral tension, having it being on one side, invoking that serratus, the obliques, and all those other muscles, but also we're gonna use that posterior chain because we have to reach back and make sure the hip has connection with that heel, right? So we're gonna come up. Kettlebell will be on my right side here. Notice how my heel is in the center of that kettlebell, giving me enough space to reach back and grab that kettlebell. We won't squeeze. We'll use that talon grip that we talked about earlier. So what I'm going to do is try to keep my chest upright as best as possible, chin and eyes looking forward. If I need to stabilize and make sure that my shoulders are square, you can hold your arm out, cross it over, making sure that I'm not giving too much to where I'm losing that connection with my core, right? So I'm gonna drop down here, find that kettlebell. Once I come up, notice how my head will come down, making sure I maintain that neutral spine. So as you can see, my hips are stacked on my heels, my chest is parallel, and I'm suspended, right? Meaning that the quads will do that work to give me space, then the hips will come in and finish the rest of that, right? Conventional deadlift, a press and a hinge as well. So I'm gonna come down, set with that suspension, squeeze, come right back down as I push my hips back to find my heels, as I suspend down, coming up again, right back down nice and slow, and driving up. Notice how my head is down, right? So I only have my head up to make sure that I'm maintaining a neutral spine, but I want to make sure my hinge is together. So my head has to come down, making sure the cervical spine is aligned with everything else to have a neutral spine. All right. What we'll do is focus on that hinge, but we're going to have it concentrated to where we get to utilize the biceps a little bit more. Still invoking that core, but more in a brace standpoint. So not a lot of that small contraction or together, but just having to be stabilized in that control of a flow, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have our hands on the handle. We're gonna use a talon grip, meaning that we're not gonna squeeze and create all this muscle contraction. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna hold it in control, right? So these 4 fingers do all of the work. The thumb really doesn't have to grip because you want a loose grip as we move the kettlebell through our motion, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have the kettlebell inside our feet right here, a little bit wider than shoulder width apart, just have space to operate. All we're gonna do is hook right here. Notice how my chest cascades like the hinge before. I'm still looking forward, still making sure that my neutral spine is right there. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna utilize the hinge coming up. Then I'm gonna dip a little bit, squeeze, right? So it's nice little handle to horn clean, right? So a kettlebell has 3 forms. It's the handle, the horns, and the mace, right? So we'll be utilizing the handle to then transfer that tension, utilizing the biceps and the upper body to then grab those horns as we do the flow, right? So we're gonna get that hinge concentrated, and then we're gonna go into the handle to horn clean. So once again, we're gonna big hinge here, dip, squeeze it up. Coming back down for that hinge, all the way up, dip, clean it up, right? All right, let's do it. What's up?
I'm going for it.
Let's go for about 8 to 10. Perfect, neutral spine rear, nice and flat on that lumbar. Perfect hinge, dip, squeeze. Notice how he has that handle right underneath that chin, staying nice and tall. making sure that we finish that exercise, right? We stand nice and tall so everything is erect in his core, everything is activated. Perfect. Notice how we changing tempo as well, right? So we have the muscles in that confusion state that everybody talks about. So we got a slow tempo hinge, big hip thrust. Now we have a slow down catch, right? So now we're transferring that weight from the inferior part, which is hip to heel, to a superior part of the body, which is hip to head. Nice, all the way through, small dip, perfect. Good, squeezing the glutes up top, making sure everything is activated and contracting the way we want them to. Then big transfer up, right? Notice how that kettlebell falls one lateral line and plane of motion, meaning that our core is contracted, our core is in control the entire time. Perfect. Good, keeping the breathing pattern that he's established early so he doesn't have to find it later when he starts to fatigue in those muscles. Good shit.
Yes, sir.
Now we're gonna focus on a little bit more mobility, still activating the core and still focusing on that shoulder durability I talked about earlier, right? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna have that kettlebell, lifting it up like we did in that press. I'm then gonna shoot my legs over to the opposite side, right? So my toes are facing the opposite side of the kettlebell. I'm gonna get in a kickstand stance, making sure that my hips are nice and square so the feet aren't jacked up. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna push my hip out, right? It's called a windmill. I'm gonna push my hip out and let that tension come down to the center of my body, obviously activating my core, and I'm gonna rise out of that tension, right? So I'm gonna come down, looking at the kettlebell, staying focused, using that hinge, right until I get lateral with my shoulder and my hips. Then I'm gonna drive up and rotate, right? So I'm using that transverse plane, then I'm gonna come back, rotating again, eyes on that kettlebell coming down, hip extended, weight all the way on my core, my serratus, and I'm gonna come up and rotate again.
All right, let's do it.
Yep, so as you can see, his hips are nice and square, his toes are pointed the other way. Kettlebell is up. We're gonna keep that in a nice loose grip. So he's gonna hold that with that shoulder, with that scap, with the serratus, with the obliques. This is a compound movement here. Yep, eyes up, eyes up. Good lean, good extension. Once he has it, he's gonna come up and rotate. Perfect. So we get to use that transverse tension and that rotation, really getting that obliques. As you can see, everything is activated with a nice thrust, driving himself up. Pushing those hips back all the way as deep as you can. Hold and press up. Good rotation coming down, good reach, good look. Perfect. There we go. A lot of control. As you can see, we have a lot of eccentric tension, which is really putting a lot of stress on his core, but he's driving up and utilizing that hip to come through. Good, lots of space to operate. This is where a lot of people get it confused. They get a little too jam-packed. We have to have space in the hips so we can operate. Perfect. As you can see, for any athlete, any exercise practitioner that really wants to focus on that rotational strength, that hip strength, that power, as you can see, Houston is utilizing that tension to really activate those muscles, coming in that transverse plane, using that rotational power all the way through. And that connectivity, right? We talked about muscle synthesis, meaning that we are really communicating these muscles to go into those hip flexors and work together to maximize that effort, right? To really maximize that performance that we want.
Thank y'all so much for tuning in. And if you enjoyed yourself, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Also, comment and let us know what you think. I love constructive criticism, and I'm only about putting out content that you guys will enjoy. So let us know your thoughts, because we want to hear them. And drop your hometown, where you from. We might make a visit to your favorite trainer. See y'all.